Hello and welcome to the ninth in this series of Django screencasts called Django from the Ground Up. In this episode, we're going to be building out some of our URLs, our views, and our templates for our social graph application. Um, and if you don't remember, Start the Dark is actually a complete working example website. It's all open source, and basically the idea behind it is you can go online and tell your friends what you're doing tonight. It's all open source, and if you go to startthedark.com, scroll to the bottom, click on open source, you can find links to the GitHub repository, an issue tracker, and any sort of other news that we decide to release about the website and the open source portion. So let's really get down to it. If we go into views.py, we see that the typical create your views here is what we start with. What I'd like to do is start by just importing some of the functions that I think we're going to need. So from Django.shortcuts, import render to response, get object or 404. Oops. And then what we're going to do is, let's say, from Django.http import HTTP 404 HTTP response redirect. From Django.contrib.auth.models import user. And you may be wondering, how do you know what things you need? How do you know, for example, how do you know that you need the user? How do you know that you need response redirect? Well, first of all, I've already written the whole site, and so I have an idea. But the other thing is, once you get used to using Django a lot, you're going to notice that um, you find yourself importing the same things over and over again, which is fine, and it's good to be explicit like that. But if you know what you're going to be importing as you're typing your code, you might as well just go ahead and import that at the beginning. I'm also noticing that it's pretty difficult to type and speak about something else at the same time. So in this case, we're importing those functions that we created on the last screencast under util: get people user follows, get people following user, get mutual followers. So I think we're good there. And then let's just do one more thing. We're going to do from social graph dot models import user link, and that should be good for now. Oh, and we're going to do from Django.template import request context. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to create a mapping from some URL snippet to the function for getting lists of users. So we're going to call it friend function map. And we're going to say followers, that string maps to get people user follows. Following maps to get people following user. And mutual, that string links to get mutual followers. Then we can start building up a view that we're going to call friend list. And it's going to take in a request, a list type, and a username. The list type is actually going to be a bit that maps to one of these three keys. So let's say user equals get object or 404, pretty standard. User and username equals username. Then we're going to say context. We're going to start building our context right up here. List type. We're just going to pass it right through. We're going to say friends. And in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to call friend function map. And we're going to take in the list type. And then we're going to, because this is actually going to return a function, then we're going to call that function on the given user. So there we go. We've got a context with the list type and the actual friends already in there. Then we can just render the response. Return render to response. Social graph. friend list.html. So we're going to call the template name, and then we can say context, and context instance equals request context, and we got to pass that the request. And so there we go. We've got a very, very simple view that actually is very configurable because it takes in an arbitrary string that maps to the different functions and can get an arbitrary number of users. So let's start building out our URLs. So if we remember, right here we've got sort of a standard URLs scheme that we used last time and the last couple of times. We don't need any of this admin stuff. We don't need it. I mean, really, we're just taking the URL patterns and the include. So let's right now just do one of the first things. So let's say the followers, and then we'll take in a username, which is going to be A through Z, capital A through Z, 0 through 9, and then underscore, dash, and that has to be at least one or more of those characters. Put a slash and an end because we want it to match the end. Then we're going to say friend list. And actually, let's go back up here and do social graph dot views. So if you put anything up in here, it prepends that automatically. You can pretend like it's just putting it right there, but it's actually not. I mean, it's a method of not repeating yourself. So then finally, we're going to pass a dictionary. This is something we didn't do before. Anything you pass in as a dictionary will automatically be passed in as one of the arguments to one of these parameters. So we're going to say list type is followers. Now we could have also captured that here in this particular part of the regular expression, but I prefer to be a little more explicit in this case because then we could change this URL to anything we wanted and it would still pass in that correct parameter. So the name is going to be SG for social graph followers. And put a comma there so that we can add stuff later. So now we're going to create a new folder, and it's going to be called here. I'm doing it in TextMate, which you can't see, so I'm actually going to remove what I just did and move it to the trash. And we're going to go back here, and if you see in templates, we've got events. We're going to actually make a directory called social graph now. And inside social graph, we're going to go ahead and create that template that we referred to already called friend list. So friendlist.html. And we're going back to start the dark. Now, in our text editor, we can go into friends list and let's do the same thing we did before. We did extends base.html. And we can do the same thing again with the title. And let's say friend list block.super. And then end the block. Now we can start creating our main content. And let's end the block before we forget. So the first part I want to do is let's just create a header that talks about exactly what we're viewing here. So if equal list type followers. So if we're actually looking at people who you are following, and let's just go ahead and do an end if equal right away so that we don't forget. So if it's equal to that, we're going to say people who you follow. Otherwise, we're going to actually go in and we're going to have another if equal clause in here. If equal list type, and then the other is following. And we have to end it. By the way, if you forget what these are simply the things that we've got in here, and also the same names that we've got, the name that we've got here. So, if equal list type following, we can say that people following you. And finally, you could say people who follow you who also or who you follow who also follow you. That is actually a little bit verbose and a little confusing, but I think you get the point. So, it's a possibility that the actual number of friends would be 0. So we're going to say if equal friends, and remember friends is a query set. So if we go back here, we notice that we're using this friend function map, and in the friend function map, we have a user.objects.filter. So we know that's just a query set. So we have a method called count on that, just like with every other query set. So if the count is equal to 0, then we can just go ahead and say p, and we'll give it a class of info, because it's not really an error or warning, but no friends listed. Otherwise, we can go iterate over the list of friends for friend in friends, and we'll just say something like friend.username. We're actually just gonna put it in an unordered list for now, just so that we can visualize what's going on and see if maybe this is working correctly. So there we go. This is our complete friend list, and if we just go in and add support here for a few more of our functions that we've created in the utilities package, or the utilities portion, then we can say, okay, followers, we can say following, and we'll put that here as well, and we'll say mutual, and we'll put that here as well. So now we've got all of this. We've got the templates, the views, and the URLs, and hopefully this works. Let's see if it does. I'm going to make sure I start up the server. Oh, one thing we didn't do yet is that we actually need to go to our root URLs, which is located here, and we need to say that we have to choose something that we want it to refer to. So in this case, I'm going to say anything that starts with friends, it will refer to the social graph.urls URL configuration, and that will actually proxy over to here for anything following friends. So now we can check out and see if what we're doing actually worked. So let's go back to the site, and I forgot to start it up apparently. There we go. So I'm going back to the site, and look, it's got this under the URL patterns. So we're going to go to friends, and it's going to fail again. Yep. So now we're going to say followers, and then Eric Flow, because that's my name on the site. So we got a problem with get people user following. So let's go on to our views and look at what I typed, and I'm sure it's just a typo of some sort. So, oh yeah, it's get people user follows, not user following. So I'm going to go back, and actually it looks like I did it correctly here, and let's see if it worked. Yes, so it says people who you follow, user 1. And if we go back and look in the admin, we can see, the admin. We can see that in the user links there is only one thing, and it says Eric Flow is following user 1. So if we look and say following, we'll notice that nobody is following me. And again, for mutual, it's the same thing. Now, if we add a link back from user 1 to Eric Flow, and then reload the mutual page, we'll see that again it has been modified, and now we can see that user 1 is also following me, and I'm following them. So now that we have the list done, we can start thinking about how we can change, add, and follow, unfollow, find new friends. There's all sorts of functionality that we can add now. And we've got some of the basics down, especially since we've got all these things imported. It's going to be a lot easier. So that's going to be the subject of the next screencast. Please join me next screencast and follow along.